It was interesting listening to both of you list the ministers who are, have a role to play in this discussion and this debate. Um, and neither one of you mentioned the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You'd think, and it's something to do with Canada, US, that the Minister of Foreign Affairs would have a role to play. She's had a difficult couple of days. She got hammered in a piece by Justin Ling today.
Yeah, the Justin Ling piece was fucking mean.
As a
Holy
result of her back and
crap.
forth with Gary Kasparov at the Halifax Security Conference last weekend. Anyway, I'll let that
Oh, of
pass.
course.
Yeah.
Just to be fair, I'm not trying to defend Mélanie Joly as the greatest foreign affairs minister we've had, but back when you and I were around for the first free trade agreement, we heard a lot more about Minister Pat Carney than about Foreign Affairs Minister Joe Clark.
Here it is. We can read it quickly if we want. It was in a high school gymnasium in Missouri that Winston Churchill first warned of an iron curtain descending across Europe. If peace were to prevail, he said, the Western alliance must be strong, and the newly founded United Nations must be a force for action and not merely a frothing of words. Sitting in a well-appointed hotel ballroom in Halifax last weekend, chess grandmaster and Russian dissident Garry Kasparov quoted Churchill's prescient warning. Russia has prosecuted a nearly 3-year-long war against its neighbor, he said, and the UN has only frothed words. So, Kasparov said, forget the United Nations. It was then that Canada's foreign minister, Mélanie Joly, interrupted. We must never forget the United Nations, she said. I cringed. We need the United Nations, Joly insisted. An incredulous Kasparov replied, to do what? Joly insisted that Canada, through the UN, was fighting on different diplomatic battlegrounds from Africa to Latin America to protect and promote international norms. Her intervention earned a lone bit of applause from Norway's foreign minister, but as Kasparov pointed out, it was still Russia that violated probably every norm of the United Nations. I mean, I don't know if we need to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. Like, both things can be true. The criticism of how it's handled Russia's invasion of Ukraine can be true at the same time that all the things that Mélanie Joly listed are very important things that we should keep the UN around for. I think those are both can exist simultaneously. After the panel, the reviews were much more blunt. The words Pollyanna and naive came up more than once. There's a simple fact about our foreign minister. She's not cut out for the job. She's garnered poor reviews for her public appearances and even worse reports for her closed-door meetings. Canada, rather than being back, as the Prime Minister once claimed, has become irrelevant on the world stage. Far from fighting on these diplomatic battlegrounds, our allies are tired of waiting for us to draft strategies that we seem unwilling or incapable of implementing. When she was first tapped for the job, I called up a senior Liberal staffer to ask if they could give me the Steelman case for her as Canada's top diplomat. Joly knows how to make relationships, they told me, how to work a room, and how to take advantage of low expectations, even sexist assumptions, to get Canada back in the mix. It convinced me that the minister deserved the benefit of the doubt. The Forum, one of just a few global summits designed to bring together political, military, and civil society leadership across the liberal world, has become a key place where Canada asserts itself on the world stage. It's exactly the kind of place where Joly ought to excel. Speaking to people in Halifax last weekend, the plan has clearly backfired. From her checkers and chess match with Kasparov to her keynote address, Joly squandered the opportunity at every turn. Consider the question of what to do about Ukraine. Incoming President Donald Trump has made clear that he wants a ceasefire deal ASAP. If that happens, it will fall on Ukraine's other allies to make sure the peace holds. Joly insisted the bilateral security agreements signed between Ukraine and its allies would do the job. What is this bilateral agreement? Kasparov asked, disbelieving. How will it provide support for Ukraine? Actually, not if, when Putin decides to come back. Well, I think I was reading today that Zelensky himself was saying that he would be willing to find a diplomatic solution to the war, even without retaking any of the occupied territory, in exchange for NATO membership. So I would assume that's the bilateral agreement, is NATO membership and Article 5. Don't be demanded. No, like I brought it up, so might as well read it. Press for specifics. Jolie could only reference military aid, financial aid. NATO. Sitting next to her was Hanna Hopko, a former Ukrainian politician who is helping to actually secure military and financial aid. Security agreements mean this, she said, waving a piece of paper around to illustrate how, in the face of Russian imperialism, Ottawa's security guarantees were only worth that much. I mean, are we saying that financial and military aid to Ukraine has not made a difference in this war? Like, you can make criticisms of it, but I feel like there would be a big difference if that wasn't being supplied. Last weekend was really just a distillation of a broader problem. There are few, if any, fronts on which Canada can claim a bigger role in the world than it had a decade ago. Jolie frequently cites her Indo-Pacific strategy, designed to open Canadian trade opportunities and get us involved in preventing war with Taiwan. 2 years after adopting the strategy, Jolie told me in Halifax our goal is being implemented. She cited a few wins: a new trade agreement with Indonesia, our newfound status as strategic partner to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the high number of passages we've sailed through the Taiwan Strait. But also, our bulwark against China has been accused of assassinating one of our citizens. But that's where the wins stop. On fostering security and defense, experts have called Ottawa's work modest and sporadic. Our actual goals in the region, others say, ambiguities abound. One diplomatic representative of a critical ally in the region asked me to breakfast to explain Ottawa's thinking because they could not get a straight answer from Jolie. Canada has also been running public consultations on an approach for partnerships in Africa for more than a year. Nothing has materialized. Yeah, my colleague Neil Moss has done a lot of reporting on that. The sort of downgrading from like strategy to like framework to I don't even know what word they're using now. Can't even remember. Nothing has materialized. All the while, ethnic cleansing has returned to Sudan. Militants are ransacking the Sahel, and hijackings continue in the Red Sea, fed by an ongoing war in Yemen. Whereas Canada, our embassy in Khartoum remains shut. Ottawa reportedly developed a plan in September to increase diplomatic presence in crisis-plagued Ethiopia, but it remains unimplemented. Our mission in Mali, always modest despite pleas from the UN that we do more, ended entirely last year. And our absence has meant that Russia and China have become the dominant players in the region. Our absence? Damn, we must be doing a lot of work there. Civil society is growing increasingly frustrated with Ottawa's rhetoric-laden approach. When one NGO representative met with Jolie, they begged her to appoint an ambassador to a particular hotspot on the continent. Jolie demurred, they told me, worrying that appointing an ambassador may appear colonialist. It is a damning illustration of how political perception has come to be more important than actually acting. Oh, that's not good. Canada's attempts to stop the ongoing destruction and death in Gaza, meanwhile, have been pathetic. Canada hasn't just been irrelevant in negotiations on reaching a ceasefire, it has been invisible. I tried in vain last year to get Jolie to opine on a proposed peace deal put forward by Lebanon in November of 2023. Despite pleas from Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati for Western partners to sign on to his peace formula, Jolie never commented publicly on the specifics of Mikati's 2023 plan. These problems are far afield, yet even closer to home as we face a thicket of security and diplomatic challenges posed by a thawing Arctic, Jolie is in the midst of writing yet another strategy. It's not clear when we might see a copy. And then there's Donald Trump, who seems intent on punishing Canada for various slights, real and perceived. In response, Ottawa's plan has been to reconstitute the same cabinet committee it operated 8 years ago. We are set for a spanking. It would be unfair to put all of this on Jolie's shoulders. Here's our to be sure paragraph. There is universal recognition that the quality of work from our mandarins at Global Affairs. Is that what they're called? What is that? that an actual title of a... Like, does that just mean like our Chinese diplomats? What does that mean? Could someone who's like smart at global affairs and foreign affairs tell me what a Mandarin at global affairs is? I've never heard that term, and I feel like I should stop saying it. That's how bad it is. I'm like, should I be saying it out loud? Plenty of blame also rests with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who often takes responsibility for our foreign policy to dismal effect. As one disgruntled Liberal told me years ago, under Trudeau, Canada signs statements, but it doesn't write them. Oof. That one's a direct hit. And like one of the I guess defenses I've heard is how much, like, when you say Jolie is like her communications and the things she puts out in the statements is like, how much is that actually Minister Jolie, or is that like the PMO speaking through Jolie in a very controlled and tight way? Because like, especially with foreign affairs, Prime Minister's going to want to have a lot of control over the communications coming out of there. So, like, the question is, how much is it Jolie and how much is it the direction she's being given? And how much she's actually being allowed to be Minister Jolie rather than Trudeau's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Does that make sense? But again, that's like, those are... Yeah, like it's a fairly like reasonable defense, but also the people I hear that defense from are the people who are inclined to defend Melanie Jolie. So it's like, is it an excuse? Is it a defense? I don't know. I don't know if like it, like, because that's the thing where it's like, it like, and the other one is like, I'm an Anglophone, and some people suggest to me that it's like, there's a little bit being lost in translation when she speaks in English compared to when she speaks in French. I don't know. Ling's laying out a pretty effective argument here. We're here, right? Yeah. So, but Halifax also served as a useful illustration of what can be achieved when our ministers actually decide to do things. Defense Minister Bill Blair has actually laid out a plan to finally build long overdue naval infrastructure in the high Arctic, improve weapons shipments to Ukraine, and to get Canada in line with NATO's spending targets. And he has already signaled his intent to speed that timeline up. Because I think that's what Trump said, where it's like, it has to be before 2030. Because he wants it before his first term would be up, which would be 2028. Staffers I talked to say Blair is effective because he is pushing against inertia in this government rather than letting himself be defined by it. It's no secret that Jolie is actively seeking to replace Trudeau when or if he opts out to leave his leadership post. She clearly has the political chops to win that contest, and she may even succeed in the top job. Both for the sake of her ambition and for our country, at a time of incredible global risks, she should be given a new assignment. Anything other than foreign affairs. Oof! Justin Ling. Just getting out the pen and just cutting her to ribbons. I guess he probably didn't write this in pen, but you know what I mean. So yeah, that was... There you go, tool using man. Well, I just read you the whole article. That's what you come here for.
big